My family home is in a quiet suburban area outside New York. I was born and lived there for 26 years. School, play areas, most of my time was spent in the city. I'm a true city kid. People often debate which is happier, living in the city or the country. But for me, there's no question that the city is the answer. The city has everything, transportation is convenient, and I can't imagine living somewhere where there's nothing like the country. That's how I used to think. But life doesn't always go smoothly, and tragedy struck me in the summer of my third year working. A transfer, really. I was suddenly handed a transfer by my boss. I knew before working at this company that there was a possibility of being transferred to a branch outside the state. But I was thinking it would be fine if it were a state city like Texas or Nevada. And I ended up in a small town I had never heard of, not what you'd call urban at all. First off, I didn't even know the company had a branch there. Of course, it wasn't mandatory, but being young, single, and free, I had no good reason to refuse. Unable to take the bold step of quitting my job just because I didn't want to move to the country, I could only fake a smile and agree to my boss.
You've finally been demoted. That recent mistake was a big one. Tough luck.
The one who said this was a senior who always dumped unpleasant work on me. Though incapable himself, he was always passing off the tough jobs to his subordinates. Thanks to him, I was swamped with work and made a big mistake the other day. Well, there's no denying that I made the mistake, so I can't really complain. My boss said something convenient like, "I can entrust this to you." But surely, this is just a simple demotion. I've been thrown away by the company. I don't care anymore. This is a rural town with not even a family restaurant in the heart of the city. The nearest convenience store is a 20-minute drive away. You have to endure a 2-hour train ride to get to the central area. Living in such a place, I had neither dreams nor hope, and my work prospects looked bleak. Filled with anxiety about my future, I reluctantly arrived in the town where I was transferred. When I got out of the small station, the sky was gloomy, and it was raining hard. It's as if it's reflecting my heart. Although I'm not a sentimental person, I found myself muttering that. So pessimistic was I about my situation. I pulled out the folding umbrella I had with me and headed home with it. As for where to live, anywhere in this rural town would be the same. With a careless thought, I didn't even look at the buildings, only confirming the path visible from under the umbrella, and decided to move into the company housing. So I headed for my new home, a place I was visiting for the first time, following the map app. I glanced around, but just as I'd imagined, there were only mountains and farmland around. I sighed and lowered my eyes again. What am I supposed to enjoy living here for? At that point, as I was still thinking about these things and my vision was obstructed by the umbrella, I only saw the feet of someone walking towards me. She was wearing women's shoes. She seemed young. I only saw older people at the station, but curious, I lifted my umbrella a bit to look ahead, and there was a woman with long, drenched hair standing there. Yikes! I was so surprised, I let out a yell without thinking. If you run into a sight like that on a deserted country road under a dim sky, not just me, but anyone would yell. The woman momentarily looked my way in response to that sound, but she quickly averted her eyes and started to walk. Watching her, I was relieved to feel that she was human, not a ghost. However, she didn't have an umbrella, and she was quite wobbly, looking like she could collapse at any moment as she passed by me. I felt a battle inside me between a feeling of maybe I shouldn't get involved and a worry of is she okay? And eventually I called out, "Are you all right? Are you feeling okay?" The woman stopped abruptly at my words but did not turn to look at me. So I approached her and peered into her face, asking, "Are you okay?" She didn't say anything but simply nodded. She seemed to be okay physically, but even so, she didn't look quite normal. She seemed cornered, like she might do something unpredictable. That's the feeling I got. However, I've heard that telling such a person to hang in there or don't run away can be counterproductive. She's a stranger whose circumstances I don't know, so there's even less reason for me to lend a hand. But if something happened after parting like this, it would leave a bad taste in my mouth. There was a part of me that wanted to do something for her. But in reality, I was not in a situation where I could really care about others myself. So I thought of something. A way to stand by her to the best of my ability right now. She's quiet, but she seemed to be waiting for my next words, thinking for a few seconds. I just moved here today. I mean, I didn't come willingly. My boss told me I was being transferred, and while he laid out all the conveniences, it's really a demotion, you know. I've been working for 3 years, doing my best in my own way. But it seems I wasn't enough, and they've given up on me. Honestly, I've always lived in the city, so I have no idea how to live in a place like this in the country. I can't see the future. I have no friends either, but I didn't have the courage to quit my job either, yet I'm whining like this. Really, I feel pathetic. My idea was that by confessing my tough situation, we might be able to share our painful feelings. I didn't know if it'll have an effect, being so sudden. But although I started speaking with that intention, I was able to express farts I had never told anyone before, and I myself felt a bit relieved. And she, who had been listening silently, said,
That's the same for me.
The woman, whom I thought was quiet until now, suddenly began to explain her situation. She's a new graduate 2 years younger than me. She was born and raised in this country town, and she loves it here. Therefore, she intentionally commuted to high school and college every day, taking 2 hours by car, and got a job at one of the few companies in this town. But then, when she started working, she was told,
We have enough staff, so you're being transferred to the city.
She told them she wanted to work here, but the result didn't change. She had to move in a week or so. In other words, we were facing the same dilemma, but for opposite reasons.
My parents were happy for me to stay here, or so I thought. But when the transfer was decided, they encouraged it, and it was a real shock to me.
I couldn't bring myself to quit, yet I couldn't get on board with the decision. We were both feeling the same way. But if you lose your life, you won't be able to see your parents again. Don't dwell on it too much. Feeling a connection because of our shared problem, I inadvertently said that. She looked surprised.
I'm really not thinking about that.
She said, I'm not carrying an umbrella, and I'm staggering a bit, so I just thought. When I responded like that, she burst out laughing. It seemed she had gone out for a walk to clear her mind and had twisted her ankle. She was holding it while she walked. On top of that, sudden rain had caught her, and she was soaked with nowhere to take shelter. When I came walking by, she had been too embarrassed to look up, or so it seemed. I wondered why I had bothered to speak to her at all, but I unexpectedly found someone to empathize with, and my heart felt lighter than before. So I offered my shoulder to the girl who was limping from her injury and decided to walk her home. As the rain that had been pouring down gradually stopped, she said,
Hey, since we met and share the same worries, why don't we talk about the good things in the places we've lived?
Her expression was much brighter compared to before, and I was glad I had spoken to her. Pulled along by her cheerful personality, more than I had expected, we continued to meet regularly even after I escorted her home. During the 1 week before she moved, I had come to this town reluctantly, but I found myself welcoming an unexpected new beginning. Her name is Aria. I decided to call her Miss Aria. Miss Aria's house isn't too far from my company housing, about a 5-minute walk or so. Well, it makes sense since the residential area is small. I took a week off for the moving process since I just arrived here. During that time, Miss Aria took me to various places. Places like a small cafe on the outskirts of town that I would never go to if I didn't know about it.
The burgers here are really tasty. If you keep saying how delicious they are, the owner might give you a free drink.
She said, laughing. Indeed, the burger was tasty. It had a gentle flavor, different from the fast food burgers I had eaten many times in New York. Then, we went to a small river behind the train station.
If you sit on this stump and close your eyes, you'll feel relaxed.
When Miss Aria said that and I tried doing the same, I could feel the sound of the river and the scent of the wind, things I usually wouldn't pay attention to. Indeed, it might be relaxing. Then, about a 15-minute walk from the company housing, we arrived at an orange flower field at the entrance of the forest.
When autumn comes, you must come here. You can really feel the season when you smell the scent.
There were orange flowers in New York too, but I never thought to smell them deliberately. I took the 4 seasons for granted and didn't think of them as something special. In this way, Miss Aria taught me a whole lot about the good things in the countryside. She showed me ordinary pleasures in abundance, something I couldn't feel when I was in New York. Still, I hadn't gotten used to the inconveniences, but I no longer thought of the countryside as a place where there's nothing. Rather, it was I who had nothing. I had completely lost the ability to find enjoyment for myself. Thanks to Miss Aria, my everyday life felt as refreshing as it did when I was a child. And then, the day before Aria was to move was the day I was to teach her about the good things in the city. I couldn't take her there directly, but I wanted her to leave thinking, the city isn't so bad, just like Aria did for me. The city is really convenient. Anything you want is generally within walking distance, like at convenience stores, supermarkets, or home improvement stores. If a place is featured on TV, you can go the next day if you're interested. It's full of trendy and stylish things. So I think young people like Aria will find it really stimulating and fun. All of this is true and represents what I loved about living in the city. But I feel it didn't compare to the beauty of the countryside that Aria taught me, and I found myself at a loss for words. Still, Aria was listening with keen interest. Aria, who was moving away from this beloved rural town to a large city tomorrow. What do I most want to tell her? I took a deep breath and asked myself, and one answer came to me. Aria, I want you to stay the same, even in the big city. No matter how small or ordinary things are, I want you to continue finding joy in them. Then, I believe you'll be able to feel the charm of the city even more than I do. Saying that, I somehow felt tears welling up. Aria, with sparkling eyes, said,
Yeah, thank you.
And the next day, Aria left this town. I began working at a new company, and time flew by as if that 1 week had been a dream. Because she taught me how to enjoy everyday life. Living in this town wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. A couple of months later, something happened. I went to a place called M Construction Company for a sales-related matter. There was a friendly couple working there, and they were good customers of the industrial products made by my company. When the business talk was over, the wife said,
Lunch is ready. Would you like to eat before you go?
I thought this was also a kind of thoughtfulness unique to a small town. And then the wife said,
We have a daughter about your age. Anyway, she loved this town. Now she's in the city working hard, though.
She was talking about Aria. And then I remembered the story she told me the day we met, about how she was shocked that her parents didn't try to stop her. But from the look on that wife's face, the love for her daughter was palpable. I would think it's normal to want her to stay, but as I was thinking, why would that be? The old man said,
But she loves this place too much. Not being tied to such a small town and wanting her to see a broader world is a parent's love, I suppose. She was decided for a job in New York, but she got all sulky and upset.
I understood from those words. They wanted her to go to a new place precisely because they cared about Aria. Neither Aria nor I had looked beyond the reality in front of us, completely unaware of the underlying feelings. Though it's different from family and the company, perhaps my transfer here has real significance. If it were due to mistake, they could have fired me. If that's the case, instead of being down about being demoted, I should be doing what I can to give it meaning. I was able to realize this unexpectedly.
With that girl, about a week before her transfer, she became very positive. It seems like she met someone wonderful and said, I met someone who taught me that getting to know a new place can be fun. And I was so happy, so very happy.
I felt the same way. Even if coming here didn't hold deep meaning, I met her. That alone makes it significant in my life. 5 years later, I, who had grown to love the country life, and who served as the branch manager of that rural town's office, was recognized for my achievements and was assigned a new branch in my hometown this spring. I did feel a little sad to leave the country life, but since she's with me, I feel like I can enjoy myself anywhere.
It'll be fun to live in the place where you were born and raised.
Aria always says you can have fun anywhere, right? Yes, I married Aria a year ago. Aria's parents were surprised to find out that I was the one their daughter had talked about. But
I can send my daughter off as a bride with peace of mind,
they said, crying with joy. My hometown, which I've loved since I was a child. I feel like I can love it even more with my wife. She's a wonderful person who finds joy in everyday life, and that's why